there. Welcome to Esoteric Soul Teachings. This is Shenayda, and this is our first of a series on the channel that deals with esoteric astrology. I'd like to start out by actually describing a little bit about what this spring is going to be like. We have a very exciting spring ahead of us. Most of us are recovering from January and February. It was a pretty hardy time. It took us deep into sleeping parts of ourselves and kind of rearranged some things. I don't know about you guys, but that's exactly what the planets planned for us. Realizing that we are immortal in our souls, but very mortal in our bodies. Now, the seeds that have come out of this have to do with this emerging that's starting to happen now in the spring, which is starting to connect with our source. So we're currently in Pisces right now, and I'm not going to talk a lot about Pisces because I'd really like this to begin with Aries and the thrusting of Aries, but I can't not do it and not include what's happening currently, and that is the energy of Pisces. How many of you are experiencing more dreams and more vivid dreams and more color dreams? Dreams in full color. What we've got here is a planetary shift that is quite major that's happening this month. And that was the 6th and 7th of March, and that is the planet Uranus moved into Taurus in a permanent station. It's no longer going retrograde back and forth. When it was in Aries, prior to that, there was a lot of activity, almost like warlike in some ways, but also frustration. A lot of irritability and frustration. We're coming out of that. There's a smoothing going on with the Piscean energy and with Taurus being in Uranus. Now, I want to talk about that for a minute. I know there's a lot of astrologers talking about that, but esoterically, Uranus is one of our planets of transformation and change, and so we have to pay attention to to Pluto and Uranus a lot, because they are strong planets of letting go, strong planets of creating changes in our bodies, changes in our people around us, in our environment, in our work. All kinds of changes depending on where Uranus is in your chart. Kind of important to know that. By going into Uranus, what it's going to do is create, Uranus going into Taurus, it's going to create sort of an organic change. It's almost like a start and stop kind of energy. It's like Taurus is going to slow things down and Uranus is going to speed things up. One's very earthy, that's Taurus, and the other is very mental, and that's Uranus. And so we've got this earth, air energy going, which is kind of nice in a way. It means that we can actually come into somewhat of a balance in terms of what our minds are seeing as possibilities and what our bodies can do. So I think a lot of us are slowing down in our bodies so that we can access some of the creativity that's coming out through Uranus. Again, depends on where this planetary shift is in your chart. I think it's interesting to note that as long as we're talking about Taurus, is I like to talk about it, and maybe one of these times I'll take us through the generations of, or the chronological ascent of each astrological sign. But the time of the Taurus was a time of the goddess. She was in full regalia. She was pretty much running things, in that no one would think about doing anything without checking with the goddess. We had seamen who would not go on a voyage without going to the goddess and saying, is this a good time to do that? There was an interaction of action and yet wisdom place that existed. What we're going to feel mostly, and I'm still talking about this station, this permanent station of Uranus and Taurus, is we're actually going to be affected mostly by, it's going to affect mostly the fixed signs, which is Leo and Aquarius. It's also affecting Scorpio, as well of course Taurus. So the need to move is going to start taking place as soon as the March 20th event occurs, which is spring equinox, full moon in Libra. The need to move will overtake us. It's like a cardinal energy. Cardinal meaning it's about movement. It's about making things happen. And so everyone's going to get a little restless and feel like they have to change all this stuff up, and those changes will affect everything, every phase of our life. So you're going to get kind of restless around that period of time. But what we want more than anything else is as that Aries energy starts coming in through the spring equinox, it also signals equilibrium. Being able to balance yourself. Being able to have the yin and yang, and the masculine and feminine work and play with each other. So that will affect relationships, jobs, all kinds of things. Now, when we look at equilibrium, we're also looking at, the dark and the light, and balancing, what we view as light and what we view as darkness. So it gets really exciting, because one of the things that has to happen is you have to ask yourself what you want. It's kind of important to know what you want. How many of you actually ask yourself what I want in that moment? Or what do I want in the bigger picture? I will ask myself, what do I want? And very often I'll come up with, well, I want peace of mind. Well, that's a bigger purpose, a bigger picture. That takes, a constant awareness to be there and be present with it. So that moves me into the changes that will begin to happen in April, which is Mercury will then move. Mercury rules the mind, and it's going to move into Aries on the 18th of April. And it reminds me of the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man was now alive who remembers that famous day and year. That's Paul Revere's ride. It was a pretty momentous time, and every time I say that, it reminds me of that. Sorry, I kind of deviated, but it was one of my favorite pieces I did in school. So what we're doing now is, what is Mercury in Aries? Now, I'm talking ahead here, talking into April. I like to give people an idea, even though they forget. of what the energy is, so they can work with it in a conscious way. So Mercury in Aries, impatient, initiative, can be too bold or too pushy, or can be a tremendous leader to move things into the next place they need to go. But mostly with Mercury in Aries, we've got that really need. I'll be saying a lot to my students. I'll be saying, okay, it's about the big P word. It's patience, because things are gonna take time. Aries, there's a phrase I use with Aries, and that is, and it applies here with Mercury there, is that Aries energy like that is, it's like they rush in where angels fear to tread. You've heard that song by Elvis Presley, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Well, that's kind of what Aries do in their life, and they have to pay attention to that. So with Mercury there, as well as the Sun, and guess what, as well as Venus. Venus then enters on the 21st, Aries, in April. So we have a pretty exciting April ahead of us, and my intention is, with doing this first astrology YouTube, that we can utilize that energy in a good way and make it really work for us, rather than tumble over it, or sabotage ourselves with it. No need to do that. So Venus in Aries. What's Venus in Aries? Well, on the 21st, it enters, and there is this focus on love. And love to an Aries is ardent, demanding, can be. When it sees what it wants, it just goes after it. That's not necessarily anything that, it's a positive trait for the Aries. And it activates its opposition Libra, so it's a desire for partnership. So anyway, I think it's probably going to be a very strong time for people to want to couple, go into significant relationships, especially with Sun, Uranus, Mercury, the mind, and Venus, all in Aries. So it's let's be aware of not wearing ourselves out, taking break times during that period of time, because it's like we need breaks. So I'm really enjoying being able to give you some insights, which are just some of the insights for April. I'll probably do one more in April, so that I can question and get some ideas in terms of what is happening to you, or make some comments about what I've experienced around that Aries energy. So in the meantime, we're still Pisces, and we're still doing our compassion, and we enjoy the softness of Pisces, because when it rolls into Aries, there's nothing particularly soft about Aries. Aries is one's female energy, that's Pisces, and the other's more male energy, and warlike, can be warlike. But I love Aries too. I love them both. Okay, well, hopefully what we're going to do is move into some deeper aspects of it in some of these YouTubes, I'm going to talk about the nutritional or the medical aspect of each one of these signs. So in the next cast, YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and, I'm used to saying podcasts, which, by the way, I want to remind you all that you can also go on my website, Shenayda.com, and see there are some podcasts done by myself and Penelope Badger, and we've done some pretty nice work on relationship stuff, and this is probably a really good time to start working on that in April. And so go and listen to our podcasts. I think you'll enjoy them. There's a lot of good information in them. You can reach me through my website as well if you want to book appointments. You can also reach me through local numbers as well, a local number as well. Just make a note that you saw me on the YouTube so that I can make that available to you, any specials that I might be running for readings. And that number is 602-908-6971 if you're interested. So we'll be seeing you soon. I'm going to keep doing this, and please also recognize as a free gift on the website. It's a wonderful healing text that you can get for free, and some a couple of CDs as well, or MP3s. We don't do CDs anymore, do we? I'm from the old school. So I enjoy being with you. I hope you come back and visit, and we'll say goodbye for now. And have an absolutely wonderful day in Pisces, which is I desire, and Aries, which is I achieve.